But my God, day after day to see these howling press people, like all have decided that the narrative is that Trump is some sort of Bastiat figure, who's just not doing anything, and that people are dying because of him. It's a real shock, and I don't want to say I'm grateful for him because I think he's tremendous errors, but day to day, I'm sure you feel the same way. My God, if the Trump administration went along with what CNN, MSNBC, and the, I'm sorry to say, unspeakable New York Times, a venue that I've always adored and always read and always loved, and to see what they did, or what they helped enable, I just don't know. If there's any such thing as moral culpability, I think, I'm so sorry to say it, again, it breaks my heart, I think the New York Times is morally culpable for what's happened to this country today.
I'm Dave Rubin, and this is the Rubin Report. Reminder, everybody, lockdown is more fun with friends and ad-free video and podcasts, so please consider joining us at RubinReport.com. And joining me today is the editorial director at the American Institute for Economic Research, Jeffrey Tucker. Welcome back to the Rubin Report.
It's good to be here, Dave. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you again. I'm sorry we're not doing this in person, but we are social distancing like everybody else. So I guess my first question to you is, just how you doing? How you doing in a time of social distancing and lockdown?
Well, I'm going to give the same answer anybody would, which is, I can't believe that this is the world we live in. I never would have imagined this even 3 weeks ago, but somehow we're faring. We're not starving. We're not dying. We're talking to people. And, I wrote a book called The Market Loves You. And all I can say is the market, although bludgeoned and truncated and it's never been attacked like this before, maybe in the history of the world, it's still somehow working. So I'm very, very grateful for that.
Yeah, that seems like the right start to this because throughout the last month or so, you're one of the few people, I would say, that is making some consistent sense to me, at least on Twitter. And I think you're a pretty great classical liberal thinker, which is why I wanted to have you here, because I want to talk about stimulus and I want to talk about markets and I want to talk about the Constitution and free speech and right to assembly and all of those things that I know you and I and my audience all love. So why don't we start with this, which is just going off what you just said there. We seem to be more resilient, perhaps, than we thought. I mean, I think if you had said to people 6 months ago, hey, do you know that in March and April you're going to be shut down, locked in your house, along with virtually the rest of the world for now going on 5 weeks, and it could be months after that, I think people would have thought, oh, there's going to be violence, oh, there's going to be looting, there's going to be crime, all of these things. And yet, as you started us with, we're doing okay. And the markets actually haven't completely tanked. We're going up and down, but everything is kind of working.
Oh, Dave, I could tell you such inspiring stories. I just want to cry when I think about it. When I go to the grocery store, which is, one of the things you can do now, it's access to real life. And I go in there and I, first of all, make sure to thank every single worker there for all of that they're doing. But I like to talk to the managers about how they decide what they're going to do that day. Was there a run on chicken yesterday? What did you do about that? Was there a run on sausage? What did you do about the salads, over here in the deli section? How are you getting toilet paper? How are you rationing it, given that there's restrictions on price movements? How has this changed your life? And all I hear is stories of heroism and brilliance, and it's not just individual brilliance, it's institutional brilliance, and it's the brilliance of the market economy. It's still working despite everything, despite being clobbered in ways that were unimaginable just a few months ago. And if I can say so, Dave, this brings to mind a real paradox of the times we're living through right now. This shutdown has presumed the adaptability of society. the capacity of society to make this radical turn, to go from one life to the other life, practically overnight, to adopt a seemingly impossible pose. And yet the government edicts that have come down have presumed the impossibility of society to adapt to the presence of pandemic disease. Like we can adapt to
Is that adaptability? Do you think that adaptability is unique to capitalism because of the way it allows so many people to be in the market and innovate and move as things need to be moved?
Yeah, it's embedded in the essence of a free society where people learn to be intelligent and learn to control their world, learn to cooperate with people and create these market signals that tell us about prices and interest and all these things. I think, at the end of this, if you're not a libertarian, you're not paying attention, because the market has worked and brilliantly, and it's only not worked when it's been hobbled, and it has been hobbled. It was hobbled before this crisis, actually, and we can talk about all the specific ways in which that's true. I blame. I don't blame coronavirus for your suffering right now. I mean, virus has always been with us and always will be, and society had developed ways to deal with viruses. Medical professionals, especially, have learned how to deal with viruses, and it's a challenge for any society under any conditions. But what you want above all else is freedom and adaptability, and to decentralize decision making. In the U.S., Dave, for some reason, we took a completely different direction. Fortunately, we haven't shut down the stock market. We haven't shut down essential stores, and it's thanks to that we're eating today. That we're sleeping today, that we're able to get by. So it's not the government that we owe the fact that we're surviving through this. It's 100% the element of freedom that remains in the system.
But Jeffrey, I keep reading all these brilliant think pieces saying how this is shows the failure of libertarianism and limited government, because this, if ever, this is the moment we need big government to do things. And the very people who have been calling Trump Hitler for 4 years are now demanding that he do more with his power. Am I not understanding things properly? What am I missing here?
Dave, I think you and I share the same frustration. The response of the left has been alarming to me to an extent that I find indescribable, because I think last time I was on your show, I myself was warning about the danger of the authoritarianism of Trump. And we can get to that. I think he's made some bad decisions here. And they stem from his...
Let's explore all of it, for sure.
Yeah, and they extend from his own nationalism and his own illiberalism, really, which I think are seriously problematic. But my God, day after day, to see these howling press people, like all have decided that the narrative is that Trump is some sort of Bastiat figure, who's just not doing anything, and that people are dying because of him. It's a real shock, and I don't want to say I'm grateful for him, because I think he's tremendous errors, but day to day, I'm sure you feel the same way. My God, if the Trump administration went along with what CNN, MSNBC, and the, I'm sorry to say, unspeakable New York Times, a venue that I've always adored and always read and always loved, and to see what they did, or what they helped enable, I just don't know. If there's any such thing as moral culpability, I think, I'm so sorry to say it again, it breaks my heart, I think the New York Times is morally culpable for what's happened to this country today. And I listened to the daily podcast, and I saw the hysteria being ramped up, and the demands for crackdowns, and the call for a medieval response to this, and the demands for, I don't know what you would call it, but fascist, communist, social distancing policies. And it's been grim and shocking. And you've been shocked. I've been shocked. I don't know what to say. I mean,
So it's so interesting that you're as concerned about the media element as I am, because it seems to me that we're fighting two viruses right now. We all know about the coronavirus and how to fight that, but the misinformation virus that is now permeating throughout the media, and it's New York Times and it's Vox and it's CNN and the list goes on, is making it almost impossible for any of us to have what I would say is a sane conversation, because we're all dealing with different sets of information. How concerned generally are you about that?
Tremendously. I actually I summarized this. We've all been talking to friends on WhatsApp and everything else, but I summarized it the other day that I really blame some hucksters, scientists, fake scientists, accompanied by howling media, anti-Trump media, combined with a panicked political class. And it was a kind of a perfect storm. Those three elements came together and led to a level of wreckage that's unspeakable and unconscionable morally. And I have to tell you, because for years people have told me about the evil of the mainstream media, and I've never really wanted to go there. Like, I'm a big believer in press freedom. And I never wanted to be one of those people to trash the New York Times, and actually I love the New York Times, I always have. But I feel like I've gotten a real wake-up call here, a real shock. I don't know how you can be in the mainstream press today and be salivating over the clicks and the views and the amount of ad bias that they're generating from this, while watching freedom just go down the drain. It's been a shock to me. I just can't even describe to you how horrifying it's been to me. And I to tell you the truth, I've really turned it off. I've had to.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.